Hello, good afternoon. This is Eduardo San Miguel. Welcome to this first quarter 2020 results presentation that will be conducted, as always, by Juan Lladó, CEO of the group. It will take something like 15 minutes, and you can pose your questions in the Q&A session that comes after the speech. And now I give the floor to Mr. Juan Lladó.
Hi, hello. I don't know whether you can hear me well, as I have the speaker a bit further away. Let me get a bit closer just in case. Okay, this is a presentation. As I said, it's a preceding presentation because times are different and difficult. But the message here, I'm gonna, within this context, what we're gonna go through this presentation, which is going to be brief, is how we manage in TR within this context, this pandemic context. We'll do a review of our results, our balance sheet position and our results. And then we, do a bit of some reflection about how do I see the future for TR, the outlook. Obviously, we've been caught by surprise, like everybody. It's no surprise to everyone with this big, huge crisis, with oil prices not only collapsed, because the market was absolutely broken. Customers are scared. Nobody really knew what was going to happen the day after. And now we're facing, and it's true, we don't know when we'll come back again to normal markets, but we have to manage a world recession. And how are we on how it was TR facing these circumstances? Very often I use the term lucky, because it's true, we've been lucky. Napoleon wanted to have lucky generals, and I think I have a very lucky management as well, bright and lucky, because we faced it with a very solid backlog, as solid as ever. We faced it, with all the projects which, from one day to another, we thought they could be terminated, and they both had to continue at different paces, but continue. In some cases, we're doing preservation maintenance. In others, they have just started, we're just doing the kickoff meeting. But all of them have continued. As you remember very well, and we get into details further in the presentation, at the end of, when I was presenting the end of the year, the results, I've said that we already launched. We already had an optimization program in place. The term is efficiency, optimization. Those are beautiful names, but at the end of the day, what we have is a strong optimization dash cost reduction program that we launched more than 12 months ago when we thought the market was positive, as we really thought that cost reduction, efficiencies, optimization, they have to be done in good times to be ready for bad times. In this case, the bad time came earlier than expected. But I'm happy to say that today, the whole TR, from top management to our engineers, detail engineers, they have embraced, very happy and very optimistic, this plan, this program. We're lucky because we've been planning to have a strong balance sheet and a strong financial position. And as you've seen on the results, we have the balance sheet, and we have also the credit support to manage a difficult situation. And number 5 is more a view. There is a reality somehow. None of our customers have canceled their projects. And that's the pipeline. I mean, all of them saying, in the Middle East, some of the biddings that were going to take place in March have been postponed to July, and those bids are public. The same has happened with Aramco. The same is happening in Kuwait, and the same is happening with some large international unintegrated companies. So those 5 points that you have here on the right, and we're going to go in detail now further up, but is allowing us to manage this crisis with rather optimism. Why do I say that I have a solid backlog? And let me pass the slides here. First of all, because of our customers. I mean, it's true that we have close to 1 billion euros backlog, and because of our customers. And let me start by Sonatrach. I mean, as you remember very well, Sonatrach, it was in the market that has done a temporary award by the end of last year. Then by January, we went over there and did a formal signature, presenting the bonds, and then they sent us in writing the notice to proceed. But it could have been a good example of cancellation, and it has not been a cancellation. Last week, we had the first, we've never had it before, the first kickoff meeting on a between Sonatrach, Samsung, and TR Telematics. So the project engineering is launched, and we'll be adjusting the project to these new times. So it's a priority for the customer. We have extremely supportive customer in this case, and the project is moving forward. So this is our first and very important award of this first quarter 2020. But all the customers, they have solid projects. I mean, the Aramco projects are critical for them. We're going to have to adjust to the new schedules, so they're critical. The Exxon projects, we're going to have to adjust to new schedules. You know, as we're not allowed right now to continue mechanical erections in Singapore, but we will in a few weeks. But all of them, they're solid investments, and if you look at it in a rather solid market, where 55% is downstream and 40% is upstream, but most of it gas, which is a bit more resilient than pure oil. So it's, all of this together in this crisis, I wish I had been better, but it's given us minimum 2+ years of visibility. And I've said before that we have continued this backlog with all our customers. I've said, the first one, we were talking about Sonatrach. How do you start a project working, from home? Well, we've done it. A task force of 250 Spaniards with close to 200 professionals from Samsung, from a project management team from Algiers, Sonatrach. We all work together quite nicely, preparing documentation, and we've already organized the job, and we've started. We've started quite nicely and very successfully. As a number of examples, in less than a week, we had more than 5,000 engineers working from home, designing from home, and the rate of problems that we were, that we're having, there was less than 300 a day. So, and then when you compare the advance on a weekly basis, it was surprisingly, sometimes it was quite similar as if we were working in our offices. It doesn't mean that now we're going to continue working from home forever, but I mean, we've moved, telematics, we move smart working, which is a fancy thing to say nowadays, quite nice, with a very high productivity. Procurement, we've had huge challenges. To give you an example, in some of our big projects in February, we moved the source from China to Italy. Not very, we didn't get it right. So we have to, sometimes wait. In some others, do telematic inspections, virtual inspections, quite successfully. And in some cases, alternative sourcing, and in some others, reprogramming the job and work, with what can be supplied local, waiting for the Italian, Chinese, or American equipment for a later stage in the project. So it's in our DNA to reprogram our jobs together with our customers, to whom I like to thank as well in this presentation. And we say construction. Construction has been extremely difficult in some cases. It has been stopped in some, for weeks in some countries. But we have demobilizations, quarantines, but all of them at one stage or another will all have continued. So it has been difficult, expatriates were they were not in a very comfortable situation. I like to as well, all our subcontractors scared, working, complying with local regulations. They've all worked, and we have a different pace, obviously a different pace that we had expected, but we have given continuity to the construction operations quite successfully, very successfully. And now I'll move forward to what we call the Transforma project, optimization and efficiency. This is not a reaction to COVID. I mean, when COVID came, we were already here. I mean, the whole process has started more than 12 months ago, but it started to become last fall a reality. Well organized by team and flowing down through the whole operations of TR. I'm not very happy to throw numbers because we want to be and we are extremely ambitious in all the cost reduction and optimization scheme that I like to outline here. Obviously, the corporate reduction is very important and is already going to have, we've seen impact these year results. In procurement, centralizing, standardizing, negotiating procurement, is you have to realize that we procure more than 3 billion a year. If we put together a profound scheme of optimization of procurement capacities, there is money to be saved, and there is money we're going to be saving for sure. And obviously, we've always, claimed that we were the best engineers, but once we went through the oil crisis of 2014 and we were developing our, full blast of resources in 2018 and 19, I think it was time to review whether we could optimize our engineering, both our home office engineering and field engineering. A lot of, inefficiencies in home office engineering translate to field engineering. A better design of our shops here and there translates into a huge, very important efficiency in terms of timing, which is money, and in terms of cost, which is money. And all of that, it couldn't be done with a management scheme, a talent management scheme that is already in place, where we have to motivate the good ones, like in any company, and we would not identify the less efficient, like in any company with thousands of engineers. The DOS schemes, as I said before, it has to be done in good times to be ready when bad times come. We launched it at the end of 2018. It was fully in place by the end of 2019, and 2020 bad times came, and we're ready. That's the message. If you put all that together, with the pandemic crisis surprised us, we are facing it with a strong balance sheet position, a strong financial position. Our net cash was expected because it was somehow announced, on February to you. You were asking me one way or another with different words whether I could anticipate, an improvement in cash, and I was saying in a timid way that maybe. The reality is we've ended up, probably because we have good customers then when need to pay, they pay well. We have ended up the quarter with a solid net cash position. But most important than the net cash, we have ended up with a strong liquidity position of, if you put them all together, above $1.2 billion liquidity, which is, if you add up together, the gross cash, which is the 600 million you see in the balance sheet, plus the 400 million you see in net cash, together with the lines of credit that we have not, used. So again, this is good news, but we have to have this. Uncertainty is uncertainty, and we have to manage big and huge projects. We have to find ways to improve, to satisfy customers, to manage cash together with customers, as most of the jobs has to be reshuffled somehow. In many cases, we're going to have to support some of our suppliers, which are not, as strong. They're qualified, and they're not as strong as others. So we're going to run a difficult year, but I think we're going to run to a successful year in terms of balance sheet management and liquidity management. And after that, we have the first quarter results. The first quarter results, it could have been slightly better. It's true. I don't want to be very proud of the results, but there has been already some delays translated in the turnover, which has its margin and some costs. But we've been able to finalize March with a 24 million EBIT, which I think is quite acceptable, which is in the neighborhood of 2% EBIT margin. We have a bad number. It's not important that it's bad because of its size. It's not important because it's quarterly, which are the net financial results. In order to explain it, our running rate of financial cost is, give or take, is 1 million plus a quarter. And then we have, depending on the picture, ups and downs having to do with a picture of appreciation or depreciation of weak currencies that we have debts and cash balances that we have dollars. And that's what we have shown in the numbers, about close to $3.8 million which is the picture, the mark to market of our FX balances. And the bad news, this is not very important either, but it is bad news, is our financial assets. The picture of financial assets in the middle of the beginning of the pandemic, market comes down and have a hit, which doesn't have to be multiplied by 4. If anything, will recover, which is of close to 6 million euros. That's why, our net results are not as nice as I would have expected because of that impact. But it definitely is not recurrent, which it definitely is not multiplied by 4. That gives us a profit before taxes of 12.4, which if you compare to what we had a year ago, is still quite good. And a net profit of close to $9 million, which again is quite good comparing to first quarter 2019. And I think you've done your analysis of the P&L, so I'll move forward to outlook and pipeline. I think I cannot talk about outlook without talking about pipeline, because everybody says, so what comes next? I think we're going to have to wait. Let's be prudent. When I say that there is no cancellations, truly there is no cancellations. On the other side, projects are being postponed or delayed. Projects, sanction of investments are being delayed. But on the other side, we're getting more than expected awards and pre-qualifications to bid on FITs, which is FITs, competitive FITs with rollover, all sort of ways that signals that investments are coming. So that's the second good news, that allows me to be optimistic. And the third, often was criticized, is that 65% of our pipeline is in the Middle East. And I do believe that out of all of them is the Middle East who's going to come first. The first investments we will see the investments in all the Middle East countries. There were plans. They're moving forward into petrochemicals. They need it, and they're very much advanced into investment sanctioning. In some cases, we're already bidding. So while this is slight, if I move forward to the last one, which at the end of the day is quite similar to what I've said at the very beginning, and a lot of you may wondering why you're not giving us a guidance and as I said, I cannot today give. I mean, uncertainties is still too big to give a quantitative guidance. That if you take into account where are we today with our backlog, our projects, our cost structure, financial position, and the pipeline, I can give you a qualitative message. We're doing good. We're going to end up this year with acceptable results for sure, but uncertainties are too great to quantify that. So the last sentence is a very important sentence, that I'm optimistic, but I have to be prudent. I mean, if I would not put the term prudent here before optimism, you would have think that I would have lost credibility. I mean, today calls for prudency. We all have to be prudent in managing the jobs, in bidding, in managing the cash flow for projects, and trying to anticipate what's going to happen next. Nobody knows. But TRs, as I said before, customers, balance sheet, pipeline, backlog, and all our professionals allows me to call for optimism. Prudent, but optimism. Thank you very much. And now I'm looking forward to answer any questions you may pose.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Q&A session starts now. If you wish to ask a question, please dial 01 on your telephone keypad. Thank you. The first question comes from Mick Pickup from Barclays. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking my question. A couple, if I may. Just on the projects, which are obviously going to see some form of delays at the moment, can you just talk to me how your contracts are structured and how you cope with those delays? Do you end up squeezed against a deadline, or are the contracts flexible enough to allow you to extend the contract out? And secondly, I know you don't give the number at this stage, but when I looked back at the full year results, the big surprise was the big loss in power in the second half. Can you just talk how the power business is doing at the moment? And obviously with that comes how well is the oil and gas section doing?
I mean, the contract structure in all the contracts, there is a clause of force majeure, and the force majeure allows for extra time, and then the customers accept there has been force majeure in all of them.
Okay.
And in some cases as well, contracts allow to change of law, which is more difficult. Owners changes, owners demands. I mean, if an owner doesn't allow us to go into the site, you have allowed to claim. But we're not on a claim status right now with our main jobs, say in the Middle East, with the big names in the Middle East with whom we're working, and we're not working. I don't want to start naming customers here, but we're not working with the small ones. We're all sitting down and saying how we're gonna together analyze the impact. Obviously, the schedule, there is no. I mean, I'm not going to say there is contractual pressure. What we have is we have to do a smart managing of the jobs.
Okay.
We're going to have less pressure on the delivery, so that we have to be ready and sit down with the customers to be ready. So when the customer says run, we'll have to run. But now is not time for running. Now it's time for managing and trying to assert what is the new date that job has to be delivered. In extremely good faith. We need all of customers from from Northern Europe, Singapore, South America and the Middle East are sitting with us trying to analyze, what is the impact on the job and how we can work together for a new date and in many cases a new cost.
Okay, magic. And on the power?
And on the power, we've announced before, we have, and very importantly in the UK, we have problems, and we had problems because of, had nothing to do with COVID, had to do with Brexit, inefficiencies, unions, and we were working and shuffling with the customer ideal to anticipate the jobs and run, and we had close to 2,000 guys working for them to find ways so our customers could start making money being operations by early this summer. Now COVID has come. I don't think we're worse than we were before, but again, we're working with the customers in a way to now. I'm talking in the UK that from 1,500 we went down to 300, and now we have 800 guys working there. How can we restructure the job and move the job into a profitable one for the customer as soon as possible?
Okay.
So we're not worse than we were before. We had Brexit impact, and now we have COVID impact, and together, customer and us, we have to find a way to accelerate this whole thing.
Okay. Thank you.
With a lot of uncertainties, let me tell you, because we thought that we could launch the job this week, and now we've learned we cannot. But if it's not this week, it will be in 2 or 3 weeks. It had to do with local norms and the day-to-day management of this unfortunate pandemic.
Okay. Thank you, Juan.
Thank you, Mick.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you again, if you have any comments or questions, please press 01 on your telephone keypad to enter a queue. Thank you. The next question comes from Francisco Ruiz from Exxon. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I have 3 questions, if I may. The first one is regarding the working capital. If you could give us a reason of such a good improvement versus previous quarters, and if this level, together with the level of cash, is sustainable for the rest of the year. The second one is if you could give us an idea of how much of the margin improvement this quarter is due to the transformer plan. And last, I understand the high level of uncertainty nowadays, but can we discard already reaching about 3% margin for this year? Thank you.
Let me tell you, on the last, I remember very well that there were, all of you guys were trying to, if I could anticipate that the working capital improvement of last quarter of 2019, would be reflected on the future quarters. And I was saying, yes, no, maybe. I didn't want to anticipate. Obviously, our feeling is that, with the new backlog and as our planning was showing us, sometimes plans get truncated, that our working capital was improving. And it has improved this first quarter. I cannot anticipate that it's going to be improving. I mean, now we're going to have to go through very difficult quarters, extremely difficult quarters with no awards that I can anticipate. Important awards. We get engineering, upgrade, improvements of the jobs we already have, but not important awards. And managing jobs were, in a difficult situation. So I don't foresee any improvement in working capital. And let me be clear about that. We have to manage cash very carefully. We have to, when customer wants to extend the project, we have to negotiate with subcontractors and extend in exactly the same way. Otherwise, we'll have a working capital problem. In some cases, if it's a small quality suppliers, we're going to have to support them. So the term crafty is not very good. But now in the next 2 quarters, it's going to be quite crafty. Project by project, supplier by supplier, and customer by customer. I mean, and very difficult to plan. So we have to do a bit of a defensive management, cash management defensive. But we have to maintain our suppliers and negotiate with our customers. And it's an equilibrium that you're going to have to manage within the next 2 quarters. So if I have to give you a number, I couldn't give you a number, but it's going to be closer to last year working capital or net cash flows than what we've seen now. I mean, we can get surprises because, customers sort of, no. what was you had another question, right?
Yeah. There were two. The one on margins, or how much of the margin improvement comes due to the transformer plan, and if we could expect margins above 3% for the year.
Okay, we're gonna be successful in transformer, and in this quarter, we're not seeing any transformer, practically nothing. I mean, this is the first quarter, and it started this year. But I don't want all of you start growing expectation of transformer. We're gonna start a company with a 10% margin. We've gone through extremely difficult times. We're gonna start giving you, as soon as we have some visibility, guidance. And the transformer is to make TR stronger to protect all our projects. So we don't have to go and come back with bad news and with profit warnings. I mean, when you optimize and you become efficient, I mean, at the very beginning until at the very beginning for the first quarter, so for the first year, it has to protect the business, and it has to protect the 3% margins that we like to have and the 4% margins that we are very much looking forward to have. So, if you see in the future that we're back in the 3s and 4%, it's because we feel comfortable with the business and we feel very comfortable with the transformer efficiency program. But I'm not gonna say this is transformer, this is project. It's all together. But if we can protect TR's project one by one with a strong contingency to be competitive, and then translate into a rather strong and visible margin, I think we'll be winning this battle.
Okay, thank you very much, Juan.
Possible.
Thank you.
I mean, the third question is the margins is still possible. We'll have to see towards the end of the year. I mean, the number of uncertainties is and I don't want to. I rather not to answer the question because I don't know what's going to be possible or not in the next 6 months. But it is.
Thank you. Oh, I understand. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you, if you have any further questions, please press 01 on your telephone keypad. The next question comes from Mick Pickup from Barclays. Please go ahead.
Hi, Juan. If there's no more, I'll jump back in. Can you just talk about the conversations you're having with clients? I understand, I realize COVID has had an impact, but the oil price has dropped significantly, and a lot of your clients' balance sheets and cash flows look totally different to what they did back in January. So given that they're likely to look for lower costs on these projects, can you talk about how they're coming to the engineers and the front-end guys and asking you to do something different to make these projects work?
Mick, can you, sorry to be unpolite, but if you can rephrase the question again, I got a bit lost.
Yeah, no, I think it's simple. The oil price has come down. A lot of your clients don't have the cash they once had. They want to get projects significantly cheaper. I don't think you can do that by going after a contractor who makes 3-4%. So I'm wondering if your clients have come to you and asked you if you can do things differently. Are they more prepared to listen?
I mean, for the in all the jobs they're new. I mean, they're less than 50% advanced. None of our customers have said now, can you get things cheaper and give it back to us?
Okay.
Because they know what we have to negotiate with them is different milestone and payment structure as the whole project has changed. Different schedule, which has extra costs. What are the extra costs that we've got if we have to stay in the site for 1 more year, even though we can be very efficient, instead of having 300 guys, we may do it with 200. So I think when we sit with our customers, none of us is coming out, give me back the money that I think you'd be saving, which in fact we could. Not much, we could. They're trying to see how we can restructure the job to a new date, to a different cash flow on their part. They're willing to pay you, but at a different pace. It doesn't make for them to pay you the same pace if they're not going to get the job. So the good thing is that we're sitting with them and restructuring the whole thing. We like to look at efficiencies like any engineering company, and with the new schedule and we like to look for those efficiencies and see whether we can manage the job. But those efficiencies, the way we're focusing is whether we can diminish the risk in the managing of the job. It is not the same thing, a job that it was 43 months and now we have to add up 9 months, and maybe, if you manage it well, you are far more efficient, and being far more efficient because you have more time, because the models arrive to the site, and many of our jobs are models where they arrive better and more finished, because you've been able to structure with more time with the subcontractor, maybe, and that's, as we call it, a de-risking of the job. You realize that very often in our business, everything is beautiful, and then we start running into problems the last 6 months. Yeah. What we find now is our advantage, and it's going to be an advantage for both the customers and TR, and to restructure the job in a way that we're able to de-risk it in terms of procurement arrivals, subcontractor structure, and models arriving better finished, a better managing of the site. So it's given us a breath, and this breath is when we're trying to negotiate, and it's a friendly negotiation with the customers in order to come out with a better job at a different date. And that is very difficult to translate that into numbers. But just if you deliver the jobs with no overruns, it's a lot of money. And it's good, and there is no overruns, no claims, and it's good for both customers and contractors. I think that's the intelligent way of approaching it.
Okay. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Mitch.
Thank you. The next question comes from Luis de Toledo from BPTA. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Juan. Thanks for the call. 2 quick questions from my side. The first one regarding net cash. Should we consider that the first tax settlement for 39 million is including the cash figure for the quarter? I assume it is the case. The second question regarding the divestment program within the Transforma plan. Do you expect delays in your projected divestments? You see any risk on the one you completed on Empresarios Agrupados? Thank you. No?
Luis, sorry, I was trying to review you.
Sorry.
Okay. Net cash, the tax settlement. A very small portion of that was paid the first quarter, and it was paid. I don't know the precise number. Because the agreement is that it was going to be paid in 2 years. So one portion was paid the first quarter of this, which is included, but I cannot tell you the precise number. But it's not very relevant. The divestment plan is ongoing, but again delayed. I mean, we have a divestment plan of some smaller businesses and some smaller assets. They're not very important, but it's ongoing. And Empresarios Agrupados, he's been sound and that is not at risk. He's been signed, it's not at risk. He's already sold.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to ask a question, please dial 01 on your telephone keypad. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you, if you have any questions or comments, please dial 01 on your telephone keypad. Thank you. The next question comes from Nitin Balodia from Praxis Partners. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a quick question on working capital, if I may. How do you see your working capital evolving over next 6 to 12 months? It's been great performance for the first quarter, but how do we see that in over next 2-3 quarters? Do you think still will be as good as it has been so far? And what has been the key driver for this? Clearly, as you've mentioned, it's not advance payments from your customers. Thank you so much.
Hi, Nitin. The thing is, first question, let me very clear, and as I said before, it's going to be quite crafty, as I said, quarter by quarter. We are restructuring all the jobs customer by customer. In some cases, we have to support our suppliers. In some others, not. In some places, we're going to have to support our subcontractors. In some other cases, not. So I do not expect a great working capital as running a company in a normal business model. Our business model has changed and is going to be different from at least for the minimum 2 quarters until we restructure all the jobs. And as I said, it'd be very unlikely that we get down payments or important down payments in the next 2 quarters either, as we had expected in our plans before. But by the end of last year, when I was making the presentation to you all, obviously I had in mind my own personal planning, give or take a quarter, important down payments of new awards. So we have to manage the business without that. And that's why when I made the presentation of the network, the net cash position, I've also added what is our liquidity position and that was the message, how we can manage this crisis. And I think we can manage quite nicely, but we may have our ups and downs in the managing on a quarterly basis of working capital. So our working capital number, although they have been quite nice over the last 2 quarters, we may have quarters closer to where we had through 2019 on average than what we had over the last 2 quarters. I was being more optimistic on that when you guys were asking me questions, in February. But in February, the world was different.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nitin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. There are no further questions in the conference call. I now give back the floor to the speakers for the conclusion.
Okay. This is done. Thank you very much. When we planned this conference, I had no idea that it was a holiday in the UK and many European countries. Sorry for that. Sorry, thank you very much for attending. And I think this time you've been quite nice to me. You could have asked much harder questions. Some are hard and difficult. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to talk to you on the next presentation.